someone that follows us said he would like to hear more about that transracial issues. I thought that was kind of interesting. And I heard I was watching this podcast, and this guy he was talking about transracial trans
Oh, transracial. Sorry.
transracial, yeah. Like that famous YouTuber from England that identifies as Korean, and he got a bunch of um, plastic surgery to look like a Korean guy. He added like this Korean accent, and he
Yeah.
identifies as transracial because he's a white guy that identifies as Asian.
Right. Exactly. It's just like the Dave Chappelle joke. Have you
Y-
not seen that one?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
this how I feel inside, kind of thing?
exactly, yeah.
Which is on his transgender
And
bit
that's
type of
actually a
thing.
thing. That guy is actually famous because I don't know if he was famous prior to his transition into Asian.
Mm-hmm. But there you have it. Now he has the clout. Now he can monetize. Now he can
And I've
beat
seen this
capitalism.
lady that identifies as black too, and she will put a lot of makeup and
Do
and,
blackface.
and curl. Yeah, basically that. You haven't seen that?
I know. I
She
know
was
of a case that she was even HR. She was like in human resources for a corporation or a company, and then she got called out, and it was kind of this awkward thing. Like, you're not black. Why are you trying to look black, or why are you trying
right.
to pass as black? I don't know.
But the thing I wanted to mention, I was watching this podcast, and this guy was talking about that, and he said, you know what, transracial transracialism makes more sense than transgenderism because, and the interesting thing that he pointed out was that race is actually a spectrum in opposition to gender, which is binary according to biology, I would say. Some people
Well,
would disagree. They would say that gender is
biology would say that we are all part of one race, the human race.
no, I
No,
mean,
and then
well, yes.
what you're talking
No, he's
about?
saying that race because they're black, Asians, white,
Well, the
and
black, Asians, and white is kind of it's like a subgroup of some genetic trait in your DNA rather
yeah,
than being, you know, we use that to
but it
define part of our
yeah,
identity, but
but it
what it boils
presents
down
it
to,
presents but it presents physiological characteristics that are very predominant.
but for them, we're
You can
talking
look
about
at
one
someone
of
and
them.
say,
We're talking
yeah,
about one of them because everybody, black, white, or Asian, we all have a liver, we all have a heart, we all have kidneys, we all have. There's more commonality on our biology as a species than this like one little factor that might distinguish our tone of skin, which correlates to
right.
melanin in our skins and some features. There's going to be pools. There's going to be genetic pools, and that's what creates over time that differentiation in a way.
Right.
But so you want to say I have more of this
But it
gene
doesn't.
than I want of the other. That's what I hear when I hear that. Like that makes more sense scientifically. Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, you can funnel it down that
Mm-hmm.
way. And it's I agree with you,
Right.
but it doesn't exclude the fact that there is like just compare with like dogs, not to compare humans with dogs, and
Mm-hmm.
but I'm making a comparison. Like if you look at nature,
Mm-hmm.
animals, the animal kingdom, you will see animals from the same group of animals, but that are different. Like dogs, for example, you have German shepherds, you
Right.
have Rottweilers, you have whatever Dobermans. I think it's kind of like the same thing for humans. We have the different races, Asian, white European, Middle Eastern, um, African, and you within those groups, within those categories, you you can find commonality um, within those groups, like, and you
Yeah, but
can you
if
can
anything,
see
you
that those
can.
are those are physiological characteristics that will place people in certain categories.
Yeah,
It's
but why
it's
not
it's a
separate?
real difference. That's what I'm saying. It's not invented. I'm not. It's not something that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
It's
sit here and say
something that
like, oh,
is
race doesn't really exist. It's all
it's something that
genetic.
is natural. you know?
But it
You were
is
born with that characteristic
sure, but
that
we're
makes
talking
you
from a
that puts you in that category, you know? Not to label or to categorize people. I'm just saying that's something that really shows. And
it
it's,
shows for
you
sure.
know, some people are more mixed than others, but some people are very predominantly from this this race or that race, you know? You can differentiate someone from Africa that is, you know, black and someone from Europe that is white, you know? I Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
I
Black
feel like,
people look different than white people. Yeah,
yeah,
but then, but
it's something that
what
is
I'm
that really
thinking,
shows.
what I'm trying to think here right now
And you
on the
have different
spot.
categories, you
But
know?
those categories, we're looking at a very, because like we would have to ask a geneticist or somebody who studies these things, probably possibly a doctor, exactly how much amount of variation of genetic material are we talking about? For example, I know that a characteristic of Europeans, we have one gene that digests lactose, so it has like the ability to break down a protein which is common in cow milk, and that same gene does not exist in such um, available in the gene pool of the Americas,
Hmm,
for example, or even in Asia. I don't think. Um, so we can say you can create a subgroup of people who are then you do lactose intolerant or not lactose intolerant, right? So what this is a differentiation in genetics. What doesn't look at color, but there's a separation there. What I want to understand is in order to what is so different apart from physical appearance that will want you to trans identify as a different race? What are we exactly? How much part of the genetic material are we talking about here? You know, because you can have a small gene that has a big influence. Like I can have black eyes or blue eyes. That's a big like my eyes is something rather small,
hmm.
but the big part of it is the color, right?
Yeah,
Um, and that might be such a small difference in the overall picture of how to build a human. So it might be such an overall element to build what we call commonly as race as well, you know. And
right.
so we're really talking about this a very small part of an element that happens to have like a kind of identifiable um, visual representation, but it doesn't really mean anything. You know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense? Maybe I just went on a
No, it
weird
does.
rant.
I agree with you. Like, we're all humans,
Hmm.
but that doesn't exclude the fact that we have genetic differences and
Yeah,
that
but
we have
what's the
these
difference between
categories of
saying,
humans.
like, I'm from Portugal and identify as Spanish?
Well, that
You know?
yeah, but I'm you can look at Europe as kind of like
Okay,
one
I
category,
identify
and
as
then
Moroccan.
you can create subcategories.
Hmm.
Y- But what I'm saying there's a big difference like physiological and genetic aspects
That's the thing. I'm saying that
from
that difference
one
is
group
very
to the
small.
other.
I'm just saying that the difference might
And
be
I'm
actually
not
way
saying one is
smaller
better
than
or one
we.
is worse. It could be small,
Yeah,
but there are differences. It's like a German Shepherd and
but that's not that big of a difference. Like
a
that's how
German Shepherd and, let's say, a, how do you call the little sausage dog?
the
The
sausage
wiener dog.
wiener.
They're both dogs, but they're very different. That's what I'm saying. You know, there are different categories and subcategories of people. We're all humans, of course. I agree with you. Everybody has equal value, but that's not what I'm talking about. The point I wanted to make was that this guy, I just thought it was interesting the thought that he put out there, saying that transracialism makes more sense than transgenderism because gender is binary, according to what he was saying. I'm not saying I
Hmm.
believe that. Gender is binary and race is it's an actual spectrum. There are many different races within the human race. because he was referring
Yeah,
to Asians,
thanks.
blacks, whites,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hispanic, Middle Eastern. It's an actual spectrum. It's an umbrella. You know,
Yeah.
so
No, I hear you. That's why I
and
came. That's why my mind just went into this weird logic.
and that was the point. That was the point I was trying to make. I was just trying to quote something that I heard, and because one of the people that follow us
Hmm.
mentioned that,
Yeah.
in the comments in one of our videos, I just wanted to bring that up.
Right, right, right. No,
You
and
know,
I stand by my answer. Like
okay,
now that you restated the question,
but
it
yeah, I
does
mean,
make sense to understand if you want to talk about
and I think people are
like
lactose intolerant because they drink bad milk, and not because of
well, that's
genetic
no, no,
issues.
no. There's a well, you might say that, but there is a real
I'm just
you
kidding.
have your own.
They're drinking
You need
homogenized and
you need enzymes to break down protein. And some people can't build the enzyme genetically because they lack the gene to build the enzyme, and that's how digestion works. Uh,
so they can't eat meat either.
I don't know. I've never heard of that one, but maybe.
Protein.
Well,
There's
there's
protein in everything,
protein.
right?
No, but protein is not. Ask any molecular biologist. Proteins are crazy. There's all kinds, and they do all kinds of different things, and
Oh,
they're
so it's a
very, very
spectrum.
different. They're very different. It's a whole world of things. Viruses are protein.
Yeah.
Um,
But
so
anyways, yeah, that was what I wanted to say.
right, and what I will answer to that is if we're gonna because this comes like let's define before I can say I'm this race or the other race. I have to define something. So am I talking about physical traits? Yes. Why do I get those physical traits? I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's an interesting question. How does 23andMe figure out your ancestry? Like there's definitely some genes that must be more common here or there because there's not. I'm not really sure how many genes define your skin color or your complexion or your bone structure. It's all a combination. If you have if you reproduce in a certain gene pool, those genes will permutate and combine in many many ways. But then you'll get sort of like a concentration of certain genes and the elimination of others. And then you get part of that process creates um, skin color, which is is sort of related to melanin and the production of vitamin D and how light that hits your skin and how that affects some of these micronutrients that you also need to for your bones and whatever. Anyway, um, so you get what is the genetic component that defines such an important thing for us humans as society to separate ourselves from? That's really my question. Because then if you're going to say that the ancestry is because 50% of your genetic material nobody else has and only this race here has it, then there's a big difference genetically between these two individuals. But if we're talking about that 1% or 0.1% difference makes the complexion, that becomes like a moot point of trying to define how different you are from the other person. It's like making a club of tall people. Like I identify as tall, or I identify as small, or little, short. I mean, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So like if I'm from a purely analytical, if I can place you in a part of the world and say that you're a certain race by looking at your DNA, I just need to know exactly how much DNA we're talking about for me to be able to place you there.
Right.
Yeah, that's all.
Transculturalism. It it makes even more sense, I think, because it's even more cultures, and that's something that you actually can identify with. You can
Right.
feel more comfortable within one social context and
Yeah,
culture,
your
um,
tribe and culture for sure.
more than with the other. Like for example, I maybe I could say that I'm trans American because I identify more with the American culture than with the Brazilian culture, and I feel more um maybe more welcome here than there, not welcome, but more comfortable here than there,
Hmm.
following certain values that is put forward. It's proposed by this culture than the other, like
Right. Even though this culture proposes all values in all these, it's and its many subgroups. There's going to be one
because it's
group
an
with
actual
a.
space that you can put yourself in.
Or do you understand what I'm saying
Mm,
when I say that there's all the ideas from Satanism to atheism to Buddhism? They all coexist here in the United States at a certain level,
yeah.
and it's really hard to say, oh, I identify with the American set of values, because unless you are identifying with the tolerance and coexisting of all values that might even be in conflict with each other. What are the American values, especially today? Not the idea of what they are, but what they actually are. So that's a good question. Let us know in your comments down below. What's up, Warriors? Thank you so much for watching until the end. Don't forget to hit that like button. We invite you to join the conversation by dropping a comment down below. And if you want to watch more videos like this, go ahead and click the links on the screen. We are now posting once a week, every Wednesday, so hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out. And we'll see you on the next one.